Welcome back, everybody, to your Bleacher Report waiver wire must add waiver picks for week 5. So, to recap a little bit about week 4, we had a lot of good, bad, and the ugly. And of course, this is your host, Prabhat Parmar. My partner, Justin Henry, is unavailable. He will be back next week. Yeah, so week 4 gave us a lot. Gave us a lot of good, gave us a lot of bad, gave us a lot of ugly. Some of the good, the Cowboys passing game looks good. We actually seen Dak put up a quarterback 1 week against a pretty good Green Bay defense. Without CD Lamb, didn't really expect that. But some of the good, some of the bad, the Bengals skill players still looking inept with Jake Brown under the center at QB. We're still waiting for them to really come out and implode. So, and then some of the ugly, some of the more important things that we want to talk about here for week 4 and how we're going to navigate the season through the injuries. So, we definitely lost two marquee wide receivers due to injury. Malik Neighbors and Tyreek Hill both expected to be out for the remainder of the season. Malik Neighbors, ACL, Tyreek Hill, dislocated knee. And also, what popped up earlier today, Lamar Jackson, expected to miss 2 to 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. So, definitely a lot to cover. And if the injuries weren't enough, we're also expecting in week 5 our first set of bye weeks. So, we have Pittsburgh Steelers, Chicago Bears, Green Bay, and Atlanta Falcons coming up on bye here. So, with all that being said, I definitely got your back. I got a list of 6 players here that I'm going to list off in descending order as to who's going to help you out on the waiver wire for week 5. So, as always, keep your questions, drop your questions in the chat, and I'll do my best to get to all of them. So, without further ado, the first person I have up here that you should pick up is Kendre Miller, right? So, Kendre Miller, 11 carries, 65 yards, and a touchdown. We've seen his improvement. We've seen his snap share increase week by week. So this is more of like a preemptive pickup in Kendre Miller because we know the state of the Saints right now. They are winless. Alvin Kamara still is there. And Alvin Kamara did command the share, 15 carries, 70 yards, 4 catches for 2 yards. But the writing is kind of on the wall, right? So the more losses that this Saints team picks up, the more that we're going to see Alvin Kamara kind of phase out. They're already talking about Alvin Kamara being on the trade block, or like we've seen last season, when this team is out of it, Alvin Kamara can get an injury and just sit the rest of the season out. So in this Kendre Miller pickup is one of those ones that you want to be proactive about. Like I said, because the writing is on the wall, we know what happens. And as this team is continually falling behind standings, Kendre Miller is somebody that they can move towards when they are out of it. They're going to go to the youth movement, and he could put up some sneaky flex value as we go along. So Kendre Miller, preemptive pickup. This is who I am recommending as in my number 6 spot. I got 5 more here for you. In the number 5 spot, the person I'm recommending to pick up, Darius Slayton, right? So we know Malik Neighbors is out for the year. So that leaves a ton of vacated targets in this Giants passing game, right? So while Wan'Dale Robinson is one of the more premier targets, and people jump to think about this person in the event of this injury, I'm leaning more towards Darius Slayton. The reason why is because I think Wan'Dale Robinson has a role carved out for him. He's going to be more of like move the sticks type of guy. I don't think his role is going to change much. Whereas Darius Slayton, I do see him, taking more of those deeper throws, deeper catches, and some of the more premier targets. I see him as more of like a field stretcher, similar to how Malik Neighbors was. And you can get him a lot cheaper, right? So, whereas Wan'Dale Robinson, I believe, is around 65, 70% owned, Darius Slayton is available in 96% of leagues, and he's probably going to be flying under the radar. So somebody you can grab cheaper. We see his new quarterback, which we'll be talking about here as well. Jaxson Dart loves to spread the rock around pretty evenly. Darius Slayton is a cheap target, and I think he could put up some flex numbers moving forward. Another person you want to think about here also is tight end Theo Johnson. So, first two people that I wanted to talk about here on this stream, and I do want to get into some of the questions here as well. So, we got Sky to Mark here. Start Godwin if Pearsall isn't healthy. I think that would be good. Godwin, that's definitely somebody who I would look at to start. He's going to be ramping it back up here, and we've seen his first action. So week 2 of his season should be starting off. I think that's a pretty solid start. Also, depending on who else you have. So I got Andrew here. I unfortunately had Malik. Would the best option to start be Waddle or Devonta Smith? So this is a good question here. And the reason why I'm going to go Waddle is because this Philly offense, and this is something that we've talked about. I've talked about a lot as two wide receivers I would like to avoid, AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, because we see how it is. They don't need to throw the ball to win. Whereas I think Wandell and the Giants are going to be in more competitive games, oftentimes probably playing from behind. So I would lean towards Wandell Robinson, just for that reason, because it's unpredictable. Devonta Smith as well as AJ Brown, as you guys have seen, they're just not used as much in the offense. So, it wouldn't be a bad idea to look for trade offers for Devonta Smith for that reason. So. But yeah, you guys definitely keep the questions coming. I'm here for you. I got your back, and I'll be answering more throughout the show here. So we went over Darius Slayton, and the next person I want to talk about actually is his quarterback, Jaxson Dart, the rookie. Right, so Jaxson Dart, I think, is a really good play here. His personality seems to fit this New York Giants team. He went 13 for 20 for 111 passing yards, but also the big thing about him is his 10 rushing attempts for 51 yards and a rushing touchdown. So, he's winning a gritty win. He went to play the Chargers, and everybody expected him to get blown out, but he actually came out on top against a really good Chargers defense. And the fact that he has, those 10 rushing attempts, that means that this person has a high rushing floor, a high floor as a quarterback. So this is more for, if he's going to be out there on your 2 quarterback leagues or your super flex leagues. When you're in your 10 and 12 team leagues, there probably would be some better options. But for those Lamar owners who are in super flex, this is definitely not a bad way to go. He spreads a rock around. As you can see, everybody had even targets. And the amount of throws and, the amount of connections he had at a quarterback, I do see that to uptick. So I would expect more coming from his pass catchers in the coming weeks. And in week 5 specifically, he's going up against New Orleans. So that should prove for, a better matchup than the Chargers. And we've seen how well he fared there. So Jaxson Dart, somebody who is my number 4 spot and somebody who I'd recommend picking up here. So moving on here, we have the rookie, wide receiver, Alec Iomaner. So this is somebody who, let's just be frank here. This Tennessee team does not look that good. It's not really fun to watch. But one of the bright spots that is there is Alec Iomaner. So he's a rookie, and the reason why I'm saying him, and he's somebody who you should proactively pick up. He's available in about 70% of leagues. He's leading this offense, the wide receivers in targets, right? So 7 targets. He's just edging out Calvin Ridley. 7 targets, 2 catches, 44 yards. With that being a rookie, I expect his connection to actually grow. So he's somebody who I'm looking at and picking up. In 4 games, he scored in 2 of them, right? So similar to like the Kendre situation I mentioned in New Orleans, this team is 0-4, right? So, what does that mean for the veterans on this team? In my experience playing fantasy football as long as I have, these players that are older, if their season's going nowhere, they tend to get these nicky knack injuries, which if their team would be competitive, they would play through. But if they're not, then they tend to wrap up the season pretty early, which is why Alec Ayomanor, being a rookie and already commanding most of the targets in this wide receiver room, is somebody who I'm definitely looking to pick up here. So, wide receiver already, wide receiver 38 in PPR, something to know. So, but yeah, you guys keep the questions coming. I have a few more questions to answer here for you. I got Jay Marshall 828. Who's the better drop for Miller, Ellick or Troy Franklin? So this is a good question. Ellick is somebody who I'm recommending picking up. Troy Franklin is somebody who is, although he does have a connection with Bo, went to college together, and whatnot, what have you. It seems like their main target in the receiving game is already spoken for, and they're already working in Mims as well. So you got Sutton, you got Mims that you're competing with. So Troy Franklin is the person who I would drop. And yeah, I mean that's just what I'm looking for here. I'm dropping Troy Franklin and I'm keeping Alec. eFox 1515. How much fab on Slayton? Great question. So if Wandell Robinson is out there, people that's gonna be somebody's primary target. If he's not out there, this is still a name that I believe is flying under radar. So I would, if you really need him, and I think he's going to fill that role for Malik Neighbors a lot better than a Wandell Robinson, anywhere between 5 to 7% of your fab budget would be a solid figure, and I think you'll be able to get them depending on how your wide receiver position is looking now. I know there's a lot of injuries, a lot of people questionable. Like with the Niners receivers being questionable coming up Thursday night as well. You can add or drop, increase or decrease as like, but I think you're safe around 5 to 7%. And let's go with one more question here before I get into my last two targets. Bobby 2001, who's the best waiver pickup, Ollie Gordon or Kyle Manganai? I'm thinking Ollie Gordon is, because Kyle's going to be on a bye this week, so you could always wait for him. But with his injuries mounting up, especially for Miami, I can see them using Ollie a little bit more, especially if God forbid anything bad happens to A-Chain, who's often injured. I think he would be the route to go, and more so because Chicago is going to be on a bye this upcoming week. So. But a pretty good segue to my number two spot here for you for your guys' waiver wire pickup, who I'm recommending. Speaking of Miami, a really good bet is Darren Waller, right? So we've seen Darren Waller, coming retired, came back, injured, and they're working him back in just to score 2 touchdowns on Monday night. So very solid option here. 4 targets, 2 touchdowns on 3 catches. So you can see that they're easing him back into this offense, right? Obviously, it's his first game from being retired and coming back from being injured, but he's using his big body frame, 6'6", his basketball background to really post people up in the end zone. But in this first game, as productive as it was, he's only had a 28% snap share, right? So that can tell you everything that you need to know. But with this Tyreek injury, him being out for the year, I would anticipate Darren Waller being a primary target in this offense, probably third in the pecking order behind Jalen Waddle as well as Devine Achane. I could see him being that number three, being in that number three spot. You're still going to have your wide receivers there, D. Eskridge and Malik Washington. I just don't see them being that big of a factor. So you're going to want to prioritize Darren Waller, especially if you are in a tight end premium league. I could see them getting creative with him and creating plays just to get him involved with the lack of weapons that they have there now. So Darren Waller, somebody I'm definitely interested in. I would really view him just with the landscape at tight end now. And what it is, there aren't too many really good performing tight ends that you have. I could see him being a tight end one moving forward, like a top 10, top 12 tight end moving forward, just with the amount of vacated targets and the lack of really a red zone target prior to him coming around. I could see him being a tight end one, like top 12 moving forward. Okay, so we got 6 through 2, and for my last one, this probably comes to no surprise. My number one waiver wire ad for week 5 is going to be Woody Marks. So we've seen Woody Marks break out here. 17 rushes, 69 yards, 1 touchdown. Also contributing in the passing game, 5 targets, 4 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. So this guy's widely available and in a ton of leagues here at 68% available. Look, he's outsnapped Nick Chubb. I mean, this is his breakout game, right? So he outsnapped Nick Chubb 55% to Nick Chubb's 42. And overall, just Woody Marks being a rookie, being a little bit more electric, a little bit more athletic. We know Nick Chubb's history coming off the knee injury. Well, Nick Chubb still is serviceable and still is productive, averaging 4 yards a carry. Woody Marks is a better fit, and you're going to have to be a little bit more electric with the O line that the Texans have, right? So he's the one that's providing a spark, and I know that there's going to be a lot of questions regarding Joe Mixon and what's going to happen with him when he comes back. The coach is speaking confidence into Woody Marks now, right? The coach is acknowledging his breakout game. The coach is talking about, I'm anxious to see how much more of a workload he can handle, which indicates a more increased workload than just a 50-50 split. So all of that bodes well in Woody Marks' favor. They're also really hesitant to talk about when, a timeline for Joe Mixon and when that's going to come about, right? So, and we got to keep in mind Joe Mixon's age. He's 29. He's still older. Having that foot injury. The fact that Woody Marks has broken out, it's just going to give Joe Mixon a little bit more time to rest, right? So Woody Marks is definitely the number one waiver wire ad that I would go for right now. If you have any comments, I would probably attribute anywhere between 15-20% of your fab budget if he's out there, and if you need running back help. Think about your Chase Brown owners, people who are inept, the running backs who are inept. If you're in a situation like that, Woody Marks is your guy. So I want to turn it over to some more questions here in the chat, and you guys keep the chat running, keep the chat going, and yeah. So start Dak Prescott or Fields, and I'm gonna lean towards. I like Fields even in having a bad game. Fields just possesses that rushing upside. It's hard really to, seeing what Dak Prescott did against Green Bay, it's hard to kind of navigate away from that. It's a coin flip, but I would feel that they're going to revert a little bit more towards the running game. So I'm going to go towards Fields because even in a bad game, we've seen him put up really decent numbers, and there's always that rushing upside. So the more rushing upside you have, the better. BFan266, do I run Chase? I have Jefferson, Keenan, and Worthy. You know what? This is a good question. I think with a player like Chase, I think you have to roll him out there, even with Jefferson and Keenan. If you're going to start 3, I would start Jace, Jefferson, and Keenan because he's going to be one of those players that the second that you bench him, he goes off for like 30 points, and you don't want that, right? I know it's tough. I know it is, but trust me, that's just how the fantasy gods work. They want you to kind of bench your struggling studs, and just like with Dak Prescott, a lot of people probably bench Dak Prescott. He's in a terrible matchup, and he puts up QB1 numbers, 30 plus fantasy points. So hang in there, just hang in there with Chase, and he'll make it pay off here. So. Okay, so moving on. Next question. A Furlando 31. Should I keep Mixon or is it a lost cause? If you have an IR spot, I would keep him. If you need to get him off your IR spot, or if you're in one of those leagues that don't allow him to be in an IR spot for whatever reason, I think it's safe based off of what the coaches are talking about, based off of just, the assurgence of Woody Marks. I think that you're comfortable, dropping Mixon, because think about it. Like Mixon has a foot injury and he's 29 and this offensive line is not what it used to be. So, and it's not like the Texans are, blowing everybody out as well. So, they may not be, based off of how it looks, the status of the Texans. If they lose a few more games, they're probably going to be out of the playoff runnings. But to answer your question, long story short, I think that you can get away with dropping Joe Mixon if need be, if there's other people that you need to pick it up. If you got a spot, keep in your IR. If you don't, feel free to drop them. Skyed Mark, should I drop Travis Hunter to try and pick up Slayton, Kendre, or Monganai? Look, I think that they're going to try and work in Travis Hunter. I don't think that Travis Hunter is like he's obviously not the first option with Brian Thomas there, and he doesn't look like the second option either, with the tight end emerging. I would feel comfortable dropping Travis Hunter for a Darius Slayton because I think that the vacated targets in New York are going to allow Darius Slayton more opportunities than that of like a Travis Hunter, right? So Travis Hunter is going to take, he's going to be one of those players that's going to be so like frustrating to start because, one week out of four, he's going to go off for like 20 fantasy points. And the other ones, you're going to be chasing that, right? And you're going to be like really three fantasy points, four fantasy points. Like that's the type of player who I envision Travis Hunter being. He was drafted as high as he is because he can play two positions. It's not because he was an elite wide receiver. Really good wide receiver, but in my opinion, wasn't the best rookie wide receiver coming out. And so while he's trying to struggle to learn both sides of the ball, I'd rather go with Slayton, right? I'd rather go with Slayton. So, and you let whoever else picks him up worry about that here. Got more questions. You guys keep the questions coming in as well. Nino knows I'm in a 16-man league and Tyreek is your number one wide receiver. Ugh, sucks, man. I'm sorry about that. Sorry to hear that. Should I use a top waiver priority on Diggs, Ao Maynor, or Slayton? Great question. I don't like what Diggs is doing. Diggs has not been as consistent as a lot of people are, would have hoped, right? So, we're seeing some targets out of there. We're seeing some. I would probably lean towards Diggs out of those players. I wouldn't sleep on Slayton. Ao Manor is more of like a long-term play, whereas I think Slayton is going to be in a slightly better offense, and I would lean towards Diggs and use your number one priority on him, depending on who else is out there. So the way I would rank them would be Diggs, Slayton, and Ao Manor. All right, Trevor Lawrence won. If that is the real Trevor Lawrence, what up? Shout out you. You beat my 49ers. But Trevor Lawrence won. Should I drop Fanning to get Waller? This is a great question, right? Because Fanning started off really hot, and Fanning has been in the last few weeks kind of like a disappointment, right? When you're measuring like who to start and like in the tight end situation, who to pick up, um, Fanning has another top tier tight end in front of him, right, on his own team in Joku. Whereas he does get targets, those aren't like high quality targets. They're like, 7, 8, 9 yards. I do believe, and he doesn't really get much work and love in the red zone. I would lean Waller because I do think Waller, he has his injury history as well. But when Waller plays, he's proven to be an athletic pass catcher. And when Tyreek is out for the season, that's a ton of vacated targets, as well as just athleticism that has left the field. He's probably the most athletic player on that team. A close second would be Devon Achane. But in the passing game, it leaves them inept. And so I would definitely go for Waller because, like I mentioned, I think Waller is going to be a tight end one moving forward here. So, The Water Boy, bench BTJ for Quentin Johnson. I have Ibuka Pickens on the roster as well. You know what? It's tough. It's tough. Quentin Johnson is a lot better than anticipated and advertised. This is, as crazy as the situation is that you have, it's actually a good situation to be in, right? So just like your Jamar Chase situation that I was answering earlier, I don't think you can bench Brian Thomas Jr. We seen Brian Thomas Jr. get more involved against the Niners this last weekend. They're working him in, and that Liam Cohen system really does bode well. And no, it doesn't look like it for the first quarter of the season, but it really does bode well for wide receivers. And BTJ is a premier target. So it looks like they're back on, their chemistry is building. So what I would do if I were you, because you have a plethora of wide receivers, I would target the person who had lost Malik Neighbors or who had lost Tyreek Hill and see what you can get. Like, see what you can get for Quentin Johnson. I would put Quentin Johnson on the trade block. And, whereas Pickens doesn't have as much long-term value, I think Quentin Johnson is good and solid, but see if you can double up for like a running back or whatnot, what have you. That's why I wouldn't bench BTJ for him just yet. All right, Mexipino one. What's up, man? What's up? How you doing? Goddard or Waller? This is a really great question because Goddard has been showing out recently. He's been one of the more consistent pass catchers for the Eagles. I think for the upside, you want to go Waller. For the floor, you're going to go Goddard. All right, got a few more questions here. King Grendel, would you pick up Waller or Brenton Strange? I'm going Waller over Brenton Strange. I like the targets that Brenton Strange is getting. What I don't like is the fact that they oftentimes lean towards the second tight end when it comes to the red zone. So Brenton Strange is getting like 6, 7 targets a game. He looks like he's like the number two option in the passing game. I want to see more out of the red zone from him. Whereas Waller, I do think, if they're both out there, I'm leaning towards Waller. Just again, I've talked about this. I'll talk about it more till I'm blue in the face. I think that those vacated targets with missing a Tyreek Hill is going to bode really well for Darren Waller. So I'm leaning Darren Waller right there. B Money 72. I lost Tyreek. Tough, man. Sucks. Who do I pick up? Diggs, Coleman, Golden, or Ao Maynor? I'm gonna lean Diggs here. Diggs has the pedigree. We're seeing Diggs' snap share increase week by week. Starting week one, he only had a 41% snap share, then went to 52, then went to 53, and in this most recent week, 7 targets and 6 receptions, 101 yards on a 63% snap share. That's solid. I would lean Diggs. People, don't sleep on Diggs and who he was. He could be a real benefit for this Patriots offense. A few more questions here, and then we're going to get out of here. Marie Wilson, drop Cooper Kupp for Malik Washington. I don't know that I would do that. I don't know that I would do that. I think that their floor is very similar, and I would just lean towards Cooper Kupp in that situation. RT3693, Herbert or Dak? I'm gonna go Herbert. Still gonna go Herbert. Dak put up QB1 numbers this past week. Don't sleep on what Herbert's doing. He has an array of targets to throw to. And, also that New York Giants defense is actually sneaky good. So don't let this last week fool you. I'm going towards Herbert. Timbo Splice. Love the name. Love the name. Godwin or BTJ? Going Godwin. I'm going Godwin there for you. So I got your back there. There goes Gat. Should I bench A.J. Brown for Mason or Godwin? Before you bench him, put him out in trade offers, put him in people's inboxes, see what you could get for him. I do like Mason while he's a starting running back. But yeah, just wanted to go through that here for you guys. Thank you guys for the questions. Thank you for dropping them in. And just want to recap the players that I have here for you guys. From 6 all the way to down to 1. Kendre Miller, running back, New Orleans. As I mentioned to you, as the season goes on and as those losses pile up, you're going to see Kendre Miller take on a bigger role. Alvin Kamara has been his name's been thrown out there in trade rumors. So Kendre Miller, somebody you can grab now while he's cheap. At the fifth spot, we have Darius Slayton, whereas a lot of people are going to try to pick up Wan'Dale Robinson. Another just side note there, the tight end that they have there, Theo, is also a pretty good option. Darius Slayton is going to get more of the premier targets in comparison to your Wan'Dale Robinson. Of this injury, you're going to see Darius Slayton be the one to, take over those deep catches. And as Jaxson Dart progresses, you're going to see Darius Slayton progress as well. He's the one who stretches the field in that offense. In the number 4 spot, Jaxson Dart, the rookie phenom coming out, slaying the, Los Angeles Chargers dragon, that defense. He's coming out with high rushing upside, 10 carries, which means that you have a high floor, and he should only progress moving forward, especially in week 5 against New Orleans. In the number 3 spot, Alec Ayomaner, rookie, and he is commanding the target share, the most targets in his offense. That offense will figure it out. That offense will take a step forward. And Alec is the person you're going to want, the pass catcher you're going to want in that offense. If you do have Calvin Ridley, send him in a trade. The number 2 spot, extremely high on Darren Waller. I see him as a tight end one, a top 10, top 12 tight end. Like I said, they're going to be needing a lot of help in that passing game in Miami. There's a creative play caller there as well, and he's going to be really one of the red zone targets there. And in your number 1 spot, running back rookie phenom out of USC, Woody Marks. We've seen him have a breakout. He's the best running back that they have. That's a good fit for that offense at the offensive line or lack thereof. And he could really make stuff happen. He's the reason why they won. He's going to be getting a lot of catches and commanding higher lion share. So that's the recap I have here for you. That's week 5, your pickups hosted by yours truly, Prabhat Parmar. Thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll catch you next week.